Rick Sanchez is a self-destructive genius whose reckless behavior and God complex have put him in countless life-threatening situations. As a hyper-intelligent scientist with access to interdimensional travel technology, Rick has cheated death so often that his survival seems almost supernatural. His alcoholism, nihilistic worldview, and complete disregard for consequences have created a pattern of near-death experiences that would have killed any normal person 100 times over. What makes Rick's survival even more remarkable is that he actively seeks out danger, often while intoxicated and emotionally unstable. So today, we're counting down the top 10 times Rick Sanchez should have died but didn't. Number 10 begins with what might be Rick's closest brush with intentional death. After his emotional breakdown following Unity's departure, Rick retreated to his garage in one of the show's darkest moments. Completely intoxicated and emotionally shattered, he constructed a makeshift death ray device. Rick first tested it on a small alien creature, vaporizing it instantly. Then, in a moment of complete disrepair, he positioned his head directly in front of the weapon. The device charged up, ready to fire, but Rick passed out drunk at the last second, collapsing into the ashes of the vaporized alien just as the beam fired over his head. This should have been the end. Rick was completely incapacitated, depressed, and had built a machine designed to kill him. The timing of his alcohol-induced unconsciousness was the only thing standing between him and certain death. Any normal person would have either stayed awake long enough to complete the act or passed out before building such a device. Number 9 reveals how Rick's reckless experimentation should have killed him years ago. When Rick and Morty fled their original dimension after the love potion disaster, they witnessed their alternate selves die in an explosion in another dimension's garage. The blast was so powerful that it killed both Rick and Morty instantly, leaving behind mangled corpses. What makes this significant is that our Rick had been conducting similar dangerous experiments for years in his garage, with the same equipment and chemicals. Rick's survival up to that point defied basic laboratory safety. Working with volatile chemicals, experimental serums, and unstable technology while heavily intoxicated should have resulted in countless accidental explosions. The fact that he witnessed his death in this exact scenario proves how easily his reckless experimentation could have killed him at any moment. Number 8 takes us to a moment where Rick's mind itself became the battlefield. When Rick surrendered himself to the Galactic Federation, he was subjected to intensive mental interrogation while imprisoned. The Federation used advanced neural scanning technology to probe his subconscious mind, a process that typically breaks prisoners mentally and physically. This type of psychological torture, combined with the physical strain of neural probing, should have either killed Rick or left him permanently brain damaged. Instead, Rick not only survived, but managed to manipulate the interrogation process to his advantage. He fabricated false memories, controlled the narrative, and ultimately used the Federation's own technology against them. The mental fortitude required to withstand such an assault while simultaneously planning an escape demonstrates an almost inhuman level of psychological resilience. Number 7 shows us what happens when Rick tries to cheat death itself. Rick's Operation Phoenix project involved transferring his consciousness into clone bodies as a form of immortality insurance. However, the process was highly unstable and prone to catastrophic failure. When Rick transferred into the tiny Rick clone, the younger brain began overriding his original personality, threatening to erase his consciousness. The clone's brain was actively fighting against Rick's mental imprint, creating a biological war inside his head. This should have resulted in either complete personality dissolution or brain death. The fact that Rick managed to transfer back to his original body while retaining his memories and personality suggests he survived what should have been psychological annihilation. Number 6 exposes Rick's most dangerous addiction beyond alcohol. During his acquisition of death crystals from Forbodulon Prime, Rick engaged in extremely dangerous mining operations while armed crystal poachers hunted him. Death crystals are notoriously hazardous to extract and handle, requiring precise techniques to avoid triggering lethal visions or crystalline poisoning. Rick's casual approach to harvesting these reality-warping substances, combined with the active combat situation, created multiple opportunities for death. Crystal poachers are known for their ruthless efficiency, and the unstable nature of the crystals themselves makes any exposure potentially fatal. Rick's survival required not just combat skills, but also perfect timing and luck. Number 5 demonstrates Rick's ability to survive in the most lethal prison in the galaxy. Rick's escape from the maximum security galactic prison involved infiltrating heavily fortified facilities while being hunted by some of the universe's most dangerous criminals and guards. The prison was designed to contain beings with godlike powers, meaning its security systems were lethal enough to kill almost anyone who attempted to escape. Rick navigated through automated defense systems, fought off alien prisoners, and survived in an environment where the slightest mistake would have meant instant death. The fact that he not only escaped, but did so while carrying out a complex plan to collapse the Galactic Federation's economy demonstrates survival skills that border on the impossible. Number 4 reveals how Rick survived declaring war on himself. Years before the series began, Rick bombed a massive gathering of alternate Ricks at the Citadel, an act that should have resulted in immediate retaliation from hundreds of versions of himself. These weren't ordinary people. They were all Rick Sanchez variants with equal intelligence and access to advanced technology. The coordinated response from multiple Ricks should have been overwhelming. Rick survived not just the immediate aftermath, but also the ongoing threat from a multi-dimensional organization of his alternates. The fact that he continued operating openly while being hunted by the Citadel proves his survival instincts are beyond normal human capability. Number 3 shows Rick at his most vulnerable and deadliest. When Rick and Morty visited a planet during its annual purge, Rick dove headfirst into the violence with characteristic recklessness. He engaged in sustained combat against multiple opponents while heavily intoxicated, using improvised weapons and relying on reflexes impaired by alcohol consumption. Combat situations require split-second timing and clear thinking, 2 things Rick decidedly lacked during this rampage. The sheer number of opponents combined with his impaired state should have resulted in fatal injuries. His survival required not just fighting skill, but also an almost supernatural ability to function while severely intoxicated. Number 2 brings us to Rick's most dangerous experiments on himself. When Rick separated his toxic personality traits from himself, he created a biological and psychological situation that should have killed him. Forcibly removing core personality components, even negative ones, typically results in complete mental breakdown or death from the trauma of personality fragmentation. The process involved advanced biotechnology interfacing directly with Rick's brain chemistry and psychological makeup. This type of radical personality alteration, especially when done quickly and without proper preparation, should have caused irreversible brain damage or psychological collapse. Rick's survival and eventual reintegration with his toxic half defied basic neuroscience. Number 1 reveals the darkest period of Rick's existence. Perhaps most remarkably, Rick survived his systematic campaign of murdering alternate versions of himself across multiple dimensions. This wasn't just physically dangerous, it was a psychological nightmare that should have driven him insane. Killing versions of yourself repeatedly while searching for Rick Prime created a level of trauma that would break most minds. Each murder was essentially a form of psychological suicide, forcing Rick to confront his mortality while becoming increasingly detached from the value of life itself. The fact that he maintained enough sanity to eventually stop, form relationships, and function in society demonstrates a level of mental resilience that shouldn't be humanly possible. Rick Sanchez's survival through these countless near-death experiences isn't just luck. It's a testament to the twisted brilliance that makes him both fascinating and terrifying. His ability to cheat death repeatedly has transformed him from a man into something closer to a force of nature, but it's also the source of his deepest trauma. Each survival has cost him pieces of his humanity, creating the emotionally broken genius we see throughout the series. In Rick's universe, being too smart to die might be the cruelest fate of all. If this deep dive into Rick's impossible survival stories had you on the edge of your seat, show some love by hitting that like button. And if you want more dark analysis of your favorite cartoon characters, subscribe to our channel because we're breaking down the psychology behind animation's most complex characters every week.